Hey there, guys. I wanted to drop in real quick to talk to you about a brand new offer that I've put together just for you. It truly is going to revolutionize the way that you do business. I am offering a 90-minute strategy session that's also going to give you a visual roadmap that will guide you over the next 6 months to be able to accomplish any author goal you want to make happen. So here's the thing, we all need some one-on-one guidance sometimes. And the whole idea behind this is to give you the one-on-one personalized experience that you're really craving and get you on the road to your greatest success, right? That's all we really want for you. So if you're curious about how this is going to work, head over to authorrevolution.org/visual map and learn more about it today. Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast, where change is not just embraced, it's celebrated. I'm Carissa Andrews, international best-selling author, indie author coach, and your navigator through the ever-evolving landscape of authorship. Are you ready to harness the power of your mind and the latest innovations in technology for your writing journey? If you're passionate about manifesting your dreams and pioneering new writing frontiers, then you're in the perfect place. Here, we merge the mystical woo of writing with the exciting advancements of the modern world. We dive into the realms of mindset, manifestation, and the transformative magic that occurs when you believe in the impossible. We also venture into the world of futuristic technologies and strategies, preparing you for the next chapter in your author career. Every week, we explore new ways to revolutionize your writing and publishing experience. From AI to breakthrough thinking, this podcast is your gateway to a world where creativity meets innovation. Whether you're penning your first novel or expanding your literary empire, whether you're a devotee of the pen or a digital storyteller, this podcast is where your author revolution gains momentum. So join me in this journey to continue growth and transformation. It's time to redefine what it means to be an author in today's dynamic world. This is the Author Revolution podcast, and your author revolution starts now. Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Author Revolution podcast. Today we have a truly inspiring interview lined up with Andrew Cloninger. He's a talented producer, musician, and author. And Andrew brings a unique perspective because he's intertwined his passions for writing and music from a very young age. But his journey hasn't always been without its challenges, right? Andrew's faced significant struggles with obesity and with a severe spine issue that temporarily halted his ability to play guitar. Through determination and resilience, he overcame these obstacles and continues to pursue his creative passions. In this episode, Andrew shares his compelling story, insights on blending disciplines, and his latest projects, including a haiku book and an upcoming album. So if you're an author looking for inspiration and perseverance, this episode is a must listen. So let's hop right into it. Well, hi, Andrew. It's great to have you on the Author Revolution podcast. This is going to be a really exciting episode. But before we get started and dive into things, do you want to tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. Number one, but yeah, my name is Andrew Cloninger. I'm a producer. I'm a musician. I'm an author. I live in upstate New York, and yeah, I dabble in a lot of things, but these two disciplines, art disciplines, as they say, are really what I'm really passionate about. So I'm really excited to be able to dive in and talk about it.
I'm super excited as well. So let's do it. So can you walk us through the journey that led you to intertwine that writing and music together? Because you did it from like a very young age, from what I understand. So how did those early experiences impact you?
Well, it's crazy because I was talking to my wife the other day because we were talking about it, and it was like, you know, I've been performing since I was like 8. And I wasn't really even pushed into it. It just kind of that, like my dad's side of the family, they had like a family band growing up.
So good.
My grandmother was a musician. She's now since passed, but she was a piano player. My dad played guitar. My uncle plays banjo and guitar, and so they all, and like all my aunts and uncles sang and stuff like that. And then on my mom's side, my cousin, who is a huge inspiration for me growing up, because we're about 4 or 5 years difference. So, in kid years, that's like, you
Right.
might as well be 20,
Right. Your whole
So,
life.
yeah, yeah. He was like, it's so much cooler. But
Right.
his name is John Churchville, and he's a percussionist and drummer, and he does plays other instruments as well. But he's mainly known for playing tabla, which is a
Okay.
hand drums out of India. He went to Cal
Cool.
Arts, and yeah, he recently earned a Grammy playing on Billy String's record Home. So that was kind of
Wow.
a big deal. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
super proud of him. Like it was the weirdest story too, because I had gotten Billy String's record at my local record shop in upstate. My cousin lives in Ann Arbor,
Okay.
Michigan. And so, I was just, I'm a music nerd, so I go through the credits as well. And I was like, no, that's not real. Because
Ah,
Billy Strings is from Michigan. And so my cousin was in the credits, and I was like, I better text him to see if this is him, because it's tabla and the whole thing.
yeah.
And so I text him, and I'm like, is this you? Like, and he's like, yeah. And I was like, no way. You gotta be kidding me. That's awesome. So it's really cool. It was a really cool moment. But growing up though, he had his like garage band and stuff, and he was practicing, and so he was a big inspiration for me, because I got to see it done. This is how
Yeah.
you do it, like, and I was a lot younger too, and he was like 16 and like with his buddies, and I was just like looking through the doorway, checking him out, and so I've always been a huge fan of him. But yeah, I kind of grew up in a musical family. My sister's a classical pianist. I have three siblings besides myself. My oldest sister is a classical pianist. My brother, who's a little bit younger than me, he can play a little bit of guitar, and he plays some horns and stuff like that. And then my youngest sister, same thing. She can play a couple different instruments, and I play a little bit of piano. I really tortured my piano teacher. not
Love it.
not in a good way. It was pretty brutal for her. She earned her money. Let's just put it that way.
That's
Um,
fun.
but I know a little bit about, I can get around on a little bit, and then there's a couple of various different instruments that I play. But yeah, that's for the most part though. I'm primarily a guitar player. That's kind of my that's really where my real passion
I
is
love
playing
that.
guitar.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah, like it doesn't feel like work. It's always a good time, especially trying to find different sounds and different things. And so that's always been a big passion of mine, is to play guitar. But yeah, I kind of started out. Well, I've always loved music, from very early on, but I kind of started out as like the page turner for my grandmother, because in church we would, you'd sit in church, and so I used to sit right next to her, because then I could feel the piano. Like I really
Yeah.
love to feel it, like not just hear it. I love to feel it because of, the bass notes and everything.
Right.
And so she was like, well, if you're going to sit there, you might as well be of use. She's Depression era, you might as well get
Yeah.
to work. So she would kick me in the shin, and I would turn the page. So that was kind of because I couldn't read the music. So
Right.
I would just kind of follow along as she was singing, and then she'd kick me and I'd turn the page, and it worked out okay. But yeah, she was a big inspiration for me, as a kid. And my dad too, like, seeing music played by people is I think is a big deal. I think it really helps you understand that it's attainable.
Right.
Like, because when I was a kid, 80s, like you had like Eddie Van Halen or Slash or somebody like that, and they're just like, these guys are ridiculous. I'll never be able to do that. Like,
Right.
and because they're the mainstream people there at the time, and so like you don't realize that there's whole subgenres of, and especially because I grew up in northern Michigan, it's pretty limited as far as like access to, and this is pre-internet too. there was
Sure.
it was it was like there was the access to like all the genres of music was pretty limited. So
Yeah.
like I learned music from the, like, especially rock and roll, I learned it from like the ground up. Because you listen to oldie, we had like an oldie station, and then we had like maybe a pop station, but I think there's like a country station up there, and then like classical, like the local public radio, which they didn't play cool music. They played like classical, and then maybe they may have some like a blues program like late at night or something. But it's not like now where they have like the AAA format where you can hear like Wilco or the old 97s or the National or some play, some bands like that, which is I super envy. I mean, I listen to all that stuff now, but at the time it was not like that,
Right.
So, and this is pre-Nirvana and all that stuff too. So I feel like I was able to really appreciate like the Beatles is a big deal for me because this like in 7th and 8th grade I had this great music teacher named Connie Lindblom, and she was like she worshiped the Beatles. That was like her thing. It was like, you don't understand, these guys are geniuses, and like she would like look for excuses to explain the Beatles to us.
I love that.
Which is hilarious. It was the greatest teacher of all time. I really took it to heart because I really loved what I was hearing. I don't love like some of the early stuff, just like the Love Me Do kind of stuff, but I really love like Rubber Soul and like Revolver and like all that stuff in like Sergeant Pepper and the White Album and the later stuff. And so like because I really evolved and matured as musicians and songwriters and that kind of thing. And I'm a big Bob Dylan guy too, he's a Hibbing guy for sure, and so that's kind of a nice, nice little thing because we had friends in Hibbing and Duluth and the Twin Cities and stuff like that. And so we'd go through. So, it's hilarious because Hibbing is the hometown of Bob Dylan, but it's also the hometown of Kevin McHale, which is like two juxtapositions that I can't even reconcile. I'm a big Larry Bird guy, so but I always thought that was the funniest thing of all time.
That's crazy. So, I didn't know that fact.
Yeah. You should check that one out. That's hilarious.
That's funny.
And that's why he worked with the Timberwolves for so long as an executive.
Okay. Got it.
So anyway, but yeah, it's just, but they're two diametrically different types of human, and it's just like the coolest thing ever. But, as a young kid, you play a little league and you're playing soccer and all this stuff. And, I wasn't like the best player or anything like that, but what I learned from all that was teamwork. And so once I got into music more seriously, like when I was in my teenage years, I really understood what it meant to work as a unit, to work as a team. Because of the some of the athletic stuff that I did as a younger person. In high school I played soccer in high school and stuff like that, but I really understood what it meant to work together, and that was always something that really stuck with me. Was I really wanted to be on a team and really work with people, and I think you're always better when you get to work with a bunch of people. So that was kind of a fun thing. But it's funny too, because I was thinking about this too the other day, was writing and music, how they went hand in hand, and how much I loved. I spent a lot of time focusing on lyrics. That was always a big thing for me. And then you kind of do the backwards dive of, okay, where does all this stuff come from? And like, and especially with Dylan, he would always, I mean, he's a notorious, like, he rips people off, like, and he steals from all different, there's the old adage, like, if you ain't stealing, you ain't trying, that's kind of like what he was all about. And so I'd run into these like passages in his songs and I was like, oh, that's from T.S. Eliot. Oh, that's from, this guy or that guy, or this is Carl Sandburg, or, like, and so for me, like, taking that deep dive, and then also like I remember like in 6th grade, just being determined to be able to write, because one of the big things for me was I'm a chronic misspeller, and to this day, all my rough drafts are hilarious because there are so many misspellings in it. Is because I do hard copy. That's kind of part of my process, is hard copy, and then I type it out, which is kind of like how I edit. Because I had this terrible experience, and when I was like 18, I had like 500 sets of lyrics.
Wow.
And I lost them all.
Oh.
I lost them all in a computer crash. And so I was like, I will never do that again. Everything's hard copy. So I write everything out and I have notebooks full of stuff. And it's
Sure.
like some of it's good, some of it's not good at all. It's just
Yeah.
work, it's like your workbook, you're working things out and you're trying to do things. And so I've done that since I was like 18, 19, and
That
I'm
makes
I'm in
total
my
sense.
40s
Yeah.
now. Yeah, yeah. It's just a foolproof way of, as long as your books don't get burned, you pretty much have them, and so you can always reference stuff. And I've put together songs from different things that didn't work out. Like I'll take, oh, this line's really good. This line's really good. And then I'll put them all together and it's a good thing, So those are
Yeah.
things that I've been able to do in the past. But yeah, like, they both, for a long time, my music and lyrics and poems and writing kind of went hand in hand. I toured regionally, which is kind of which in New York is kind of funny because it's like Buffalo, Albany, Rochester, New York, New York City, so regionally
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird deal, and so it's kind of fun, but because you get some decent sized cities and you get to play around, and there's a lot of great musicians out here and that kind of thing. And I got to open for some really cool people and stuff like that. And so, that experience really galvanized that I'm talented enough, but
Oh, yeah.
also, the determination to keep going, even when it wasn't necessary, because I say unless you're like Bono or something, most musicians are bivocational.
Yeah.
Like it's just the way it is. And so to be responsible, I've always had a day job until, fairly recent. And so I got married in my late 20s. And so, I kind of like, we bought a house and the whole, we did the whole picket fence thing. And it was like I kind of took a step back from, and it was a necessary step, to like, I wasn't on the road as much, and like I would do some local gigs, and then about 4 years in, I kind of stopped playing out, and I was just like recording at home and putting things online, more instrumental, more kind of experimental stuff. I just felt, I don't know, I don't know if I just felt burnt out or if it just like I don't know. It was something about how I was feeling at the time. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this and focus on doing the home life and doing that right. I didn't want to screw that up. So I
Sure.
so I really focused on doing that and I always writing is a compulsion. Like it's not like I don't have to try hard to do it. Like I have to do it. Like
Yeah.
it's a necessary, and I don't journal. I'm not a journal guy. I'm not like that kind of person, but I at least write something once a day,
That's great.
like, and it could be nothing, it could be like a sentence, but it's something, and so like I still do that, like, and every once in a while I'll still write like because right now my main focus right now is instrumental music for the music side of things. And so like I kind of like every once in a while I'll write a song with music and stuff just to make sure I could still do it, That's
Sure.
yeah, just dust it off a little bit every once in a while. Oh, that's not too bad, I show my wife, what do you think?
Right. Right.
So she's, you and your wife are always the toughest critics, that's you always show the people you love first, because then they'll let you down easy, but also tell you that it stinks, so that's always a fun little exercise to do too, do you really love me? Yes. Go back to work,
Yeah.
no, she's always been real honest with me, and I value her input very much. It's very important,
That is
to
so
have
great.
that input.
That is so
So,
great.
but yeah. So
And now you've got an upcoming album with your band Ren Cove, and it's
yes,
entitled Movement. So, can you share
yes.
the significance behind the title and how those
Oh,
experiences have influenced the album's creation?
so yeah. So this is the thing, is it's actually, so I put out a haiku book about almost not quite a year, and it's entitled C6, C7. It's about some of my, we'll get into it a little bit later, but just like it kind of details a lot of what, it's kind of a memoir in a lot of ways. And so movement is about the same, it's like what I would call a companion piece. And it
So
kind
cool.
of, in a way, it kind of gives a musical soundtrack to the book. And so I conceived it of well, I worked with my bandmate Melissa, who's a fantastic cello player. She's amazing, super awesome, just the best bandmate you could ever ask for. She and I, we're kind of like discuss, because we made a record called Trees, and we were kind of like, wow, that was cool, but and then I was like, I got this vision of like kind of like the trajectory of what we could do. And the idea was I have this old drum machine that somebody pulled out of like an old electric organ or something like that. And I bought it like
Oh my gosh.
20 years. I bought it like 20 years ago at a garage sale for like $5. And
Okay.
for whatever reason, this drum machine sounds great. I don't know why. It just shouldn't. It should sound really terrible. It's from the 70s. It should drift. It should do all these things. It doesn't. It's great. And so I was like, I have this drum machine and it has all the like traditional rhythms. So like foxtrot, waltz, rumba, all the different traditional tango, like all the different ones. And I think it's like 10 settings or something like that. They have like two rock settings, but they're terrible. So we didn't include those. Because let's not do that. Let's get some good
Right.
old drums in there for that. But so we started there. We got the drum machine, and then I sent it through my guitar pedals to like warp it and change it a little bit to get some like vibe going on. So,
Cool.
we went in the studio, and I was like, "Hey, engineer, guess what? We're gonna really screw up a drum machine. How about that?" And he's like, "This is weird but cool. Let's do it." So we were able to lay that down, and then I added some synthesizers, and I have some like weird handmade synthesizers that I got from eBay and some various travels and stuff like that. We put those through it, and then we got some tape loops and we put those through it. My grandfather was a ham radio operator. Unfortunately, he never recorded anything.
Oh my
So
goodness.
like I wasn't able to like get any recordings of him, but I did find some online. I found some like people doing call outs and stuff like that on ham radio. So I was able to like kind of do an homage to him by putting those things elements into the music. So I was pretty excited about that. And then also I brought in three drummers, so they all play. It's hilarious because they all play the songs different and the same at the same time. It's really interesting because
Cool.
I had them play all the rhythms. Like they didn't come in together. They all came in separate and they all played the same songs. And then we're gonna like intersperse and like put one part in, one part, so we're gonna do some editing and get it all in there. They did a fantastic job. They're geniuses. They're great, great drummers. And then was really cool circle moment. I was able to we recorded a like a raga. It's kind of an Indian styled song. And so just so happens I know a tabla player. So like
Right.
I called my cousin up and I was like, could you do something with this song? I hope you don't hate it. Like it's kind of the thing I did. And he emailed me back. He goes, "This is fantastic. I'll make something for you." So he played on it, and I was super excited about that because we have never played together just because of distance and but now the technology is the way it is. I'm in upstate New York and he's in Michigan, and we can collaborate, which is
So cool.
unreal. It's so cool. And so I was really excited about that because this is the first time we get to work together. So that was a big, 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 big deal for me. And so yeah, I'm like halfway through tracking the guitar parts right now, and then I'm going in next week and finishing up the rest of the guitar tracks. I recorded a piano part for one of the songs, and so yeah, like one of the songs is just like is going to be a piano part with a cello and a guitar part as well. So that one's a pretty cool part of the song too. But yeah, and then after that, Melissa comes in and then she lays down all the cellos, which is kind of fun because she layers all her cellos, so it sounds like a big orchestra. It's going to be super awesome. It's going to be
That's so
like
cool.
this really, yeah, she's unbelievable. Like she always comes up with the coolest parts and like makes everything like my stuff's okay. Like I'm a bricklayer. Like I like, I do all the
You set the
rhythm stuff.
foundation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a foundation guy, and then she comes over the top with all the melodies and all the like really sweet parts, and she makes it all sound way better than I could have ever thought of. So I'm really lucky in that aspect. Yeah, I'm primarily the bricklayer.
That is so cool though. It
Yeah.
it sounds to me, it's like I've never really been much into like I myself am not a musician. I used to play flute
Mhm.
and that was about it.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
it sounds to me like it's so similar, in the way that you orchestrate everything for the albums, the same that authors are doing for their books. Like they're thinking about subplots, they're thinking about
Yeah.
characters, they're thinking about all the things, depending on what they're writing, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to hear from that perspective. And you're obviously multi-passionate creative because
Mhm.
you've written your book as well. You've got the
Yeah.
narrative haiku, the C6, C7.
Yeah, yeah.
So it explores that profound transformation. So let's talk about that too, because it was all about
Sure.
a life-altering experience. So
Yeah.
what happened there and what made you want to explore the haiku book?
So it's very, very fascinating because, my whole life, like I was saying, I was bivocational. So I would work in warehouses and like, because it's flexible. It's good pay for good hours, and you get a lot. It's flexible, and so and I was fairly decent at it. I was a pretty healthy person in the sense that I was strong enough to do all the work. And so, I worked in a coffee roaster. I worked for a big grocery chain in their distribution center. Like, I did a lot of the industrial stuff. I used forklifts, all that stuff. And so it was also a cool way to like work out all my creative stuff while I was working. So they were paying me twice, as far as
Sure.
I was rent free as far as my brain goes because I was able to work things out. I work a lot of things out in my head before I even like put it on paper or put it on on record or whatever. That's a big thing. That's a big part of my process as well, is mulling it over and over and over and over again. And so, as I got older, I get aches and pains and stuff like that. But I was getting into my like mid to late 30s, and I started getting a lot, like it was getting harder and harder to get out of bed, like after work. And I wasn't in full disclosure, I wasn't the healthiest person at the time. Like I was about 300 plus pounds. And, for reference, I'm about 200, 210, somewhere in there right now. So like, I was big. I was definitely obese, but I was still fairly healthy, as far, because I don't have a lot of vices. I was lucky in that sense that I don't drink and I don't smoke and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, I would have been I would have been in a lot more trouble a lot quicker. But at the time, I was definitely pre-diabetic, and I'm Scandinavian, so that's kind of like the kind of pounds and the kind of stuff. It's kind of genes kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's a lot of big people in my family, and so like I didn't really know what to do with it because I just kind of grew up around it. Like I didn't know what to do with it as far as how to help myself. I mean, other than not eat, which is not a good idea, especially
No,
when
it's
you're
not.
working like that.
Yeah.
That's dumb, like so I didn't really have any good information. I was pretty ignorant about the whole health situation and what to do, when you're that far gone. It's hard to like dig yourself out of the hole,
Right.
so to speak. And so I was just kind of plodding along, just kind of doing my thing. But I always had like this persistent pain in my shoulder. So I thought I pulled something. And no big deal. I'll live with it, because that's what you're supposed to do. And that's kind of how I grew up. Oh, I got aches and pains. Well, it could be worse. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
growing up. My grandfather worked for Cleveland Cliffs up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He was an electrician for the Empire Mines up there. And so, that's kind of the, bring your lunch pail to work kind of mentality that I grew up around. And my dad didn't miss, my dad worked, he was a nurse, but he worked at the maximum security prison up in Michigan. And he didn't miss work. They didn't miss.
Yep.
And even when they were sick, they didn't miss. And so that's kind of the work ethic that I grew up around. And so, I emulated that a lot. You're feeling a little sore, well, suck it up and do it. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I learned later was maybe you should listen to your body every once in a while. You know? So
Right.
I currently live in upstate New York, and so we traveled to my uncle has a place in Michigan, so it's like a camp kind of place on a lake, and on one of the lakes, it's not the big lake, but it's one of the lakes. And so I was with my cousin. We were like chopping wood, just trying to get stuff ready for camp and stuff like that. And so we were chopping all this wood and stuff, and no big deal, just kind of going through it. And then it was almost like slow motion. It was like I could feel my neck crumble.
Oh
And
my.
and being stubborn and stuff, I just kind of worked through it and got the work done. Oh man, I must have pulled something, blah blah blah. And then, 2 days later, I couldn't sleep at night. The pain was so high. I didn't sleep hardly at all. But one of the cool things about being in the UP is that's where they train Olympic athletes for the winters. So they do a lot of like oh, I forget what it's called. They have boxing up there. They have ski jumping. They got luge. They got and so my aunt at the time, she's retired now, but my aunt was actually part of like the Olympic business, and she worked at Northern Michigan University, and kind of like was part of that whole program anyway. So she knew a really good chiropractor. It was a small, short story long. She knew a really good chiropractor up there, and so I was able to get a little bit of an adjustment just for the relief to get me back home, because it's like a 14-hour trip, I think, to get back from Upper Michigan to upstate New York. And
Sure.
so I made it back home, and I was still in a ton of pain, and I didn't know what was wrong. And so I went to my chiropractor, and he's like, "No, you're really messed up. You need to go get an MRI. You need to go get X-rays." And so I did all that, and it came back that I had a huge bulge in my C6 C7 area. And on top of that, the nerve in my left arm was pinched.
Oh
So I
no.
was numb. My pinky and my ring finger and partial on my middle finger were numb. So I
Okay.
couldn't operate my hand. So I couldn't play guitar anymore at the time. So I was like devastated. I was just like, I'm done. This is it.
Right.
Like my life's over. And one of the biggest, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but one of the biggest things is that I have faith, and that's a big catalyst for not giving up for
For
me.
sure. Yeah.
And so, my wife and I and we just kind of got together and was like, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're gonna pray through this and see what's going on, and really trust that this is just a trial. This is just something that we can work through, because I was devastated. I was beyond devastated. And on top of that too, what happened as well was, in the process of trying to figure out like pain management, I got steroid shots, because that's kind of a normal protocol. But what I
Right.
didn't know was you can have a significant weight gain with steroid shots. And so I went from
Okay.
like 350 to 420.
Oh
And
wow.
so in like 2 weeks, it was unbelievable. I was huge. I was just
Wow.
unbelievably, like I couldn't move, like I couldn't walk. And on top of that, I had lymphedema. I didn't know it at the time, but I had lymphedema, which is your lymph nodes, and they quit working because you're so big.
Sure.
And so I started to get water gain in my legs, and so I was having trouble walking and stuff like that. So I was in all kinds of trouble. And so I went to my doctor, and she was like, my primary doctor, and she was like, "Well, this is your options. You can get gastric sleeve bypass surgery, or you could figure out a way to lose weight, because you're not in good shape. Your
Right.
neck's broken, essentially your neck's broken, you're obese, and you gotta fix it."
Right.
And so like essentially, and for people too to understand too, it's basically what Peyton Manning went through at the end of his career. He essentially broke his neck. what people don't quite realize. And so I actually went through a lot of the same PT and OT that he did. At least that's what was explained to me. I'm not really a medical person, so I couldn't exactly tell you, but he was actually very fortunate to be able to finish out his career the way he did. He should have maybe stopped a little sooner, but but that's kind of, because one of the MRIs, the guy looking at it goes, did you have because they knew I did industrial work. And so like, did you have a door fall on you? Like, no, I was like, no, I was just chopping wood. Like, and they were just
Yeah.
like, it disintegrated. Like, so in the surgery,
Wow.
they took 15 millimeters off my disc to get it back into my neck to get
Wow.
the bulge and to relieve the pinched nerve. And that was like a 6 month process. And during that time, I did manage to lose like 50 pounds, which thank God I was able to do that, because I could barely fit in the MRI machine. It was a bad state of affairs. And then, a lot of people, there's a little bit of controversy with the good old Joe Rogan there, but one thing he did talk about was the keto diet,
Hmm.
and that he tried it, and that, and he's like, for what it is, it's not a bad deal. And I was like, well, I'm game to try whatever, because what I'm doing ain't working,
Right.
so I actually, but the caveat is I didn't just start doing it. I went to my primary and I was like, okay, is there any doctors in my area that does weight loss? Because there are specialists out there that do that. And I say, because I want to lose a ton of weight. I want to lose as much weight as I can possibly lose, and be healthy. But I want to lose it. I don't want to crash. I don't want to do like, I want to, so I found this great doctor. Shout out to Dr. Connolly. She's one of the best in there, at least for me. And so I told her, I said straight up, I said, I don't know what we got to do, but we got to do it now, so it was a 2 year process, but I lost 220 pounds
Wow.
in two
Congrats.
years. And so like, it's a lot of changing the way I eat. Like I said, low carb works for me, doesn't work for everybody, but for me, it was life changing,
I understand that. My husband and I have been, it was funny because he listens to Joe Rogan as well. And
Yeah.
he wanted to go carnivore and I wanted to go no sugar, no grains. And we ended up meeting in the middle at keto
Yeah.
is where
Yeah.
we met. So yeah,
It's a great compromise. And my wife and I are the same way, and that's the other caveat I'd say too, is like, people have to understand too that men and women are completely different as well. Like, what I lose and what she loses might be different. And like, you cannot compare the two. Like, I don't compare weight loss with anybody else. It's an individual journey. And I even say, like, keto might not be your thing, or carnivore might not be your thing. Like, I tried carnivore for a couple of seconds. That is not for me.
right.
Like, and I love venison and I love all that elk and all that. Like, I grew up on all that stuff and I love it. I still eat it, but I can't go full carnivore.
Yeah.
That doesn't do
Same.
good. It's a mess. Like, I'll end up, yeah, it's not good for me.
That was not even on my radar when when he was describing it. I'm like, no, no.
No, 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 no. So yeah, a lot of the health stuff too. I like to put a lot of caveats in there, because it's like, I don't want to say that I found the answer. It's disingenuous, because my what works for my body chemistry might not work for another person, and it might be unhealthy for that person.
Sure.
So I don't want to like, oh, this is the way you got to do it. And the other thing is, I did it under the guidance of a doctor who took my vitals every month, all that. I still get my vitals checked, because I think it's important to make sure that, I'm getting all the different things that I need,
Yeah.
and the only way you can do that is draw blood, because your blood's going to tell you exactly what's in there,
Yep. I literally just
but
did that this morning.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
important. It's important, and the family history is always important too. There's a lot of different things that you gotta, be. And as I get old, I'm getting a little bit older now, so it's like I'm starting to get into the old man health stuff. So like, a lot of that stuff is kicking in now. So aside from my other health issues, going through that was a big change too, because I couldn't work anymore.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so obviously financially it was a big blow, but also like identity wise, I was the big strong man going to work every day, bringing home the bacon, and now I wasn't.
Yeah.
I can't even take out the garbage. That's
Yeah.
frustrating.
Sure.
I have to change, like I can't even, like when I play guitar, I used to stand up and do the Pete Townsend thing and now I have to sit down and play it that way because I can't stand and support the weight of a guitar is only like, at the most maybe 10 pounds. I can't even support that with a shoulder strap or anything like that. I have to sit down
Wow.
and play that way because then there's nothing on my neck.
Right.
And so it changed a lot of things, but also too to even get back to being able to play competently in front of people was at least a 2 to 3 year ordeal as well.
I bet.
So just for like reference point, better or worse. So I'm a right-handed person, and my right hand was not affected by all the neck damage for whatever reason. Just that's the way it worked because I didn't get my nerve pinched on that side. So they measured my hand strength, my grip strength. For reference point, my right hand was about 105 per square inch, give or take. Sometimes more, sometimes less, whatever. My left hand that was affected by the nerve was first measurement was 25 per square inch.
Mm.
And then as I got a little bit better, it was like 45. And so now it's around 80.
Okay.
But the caveat is I'm able to do pretty much, I'm not as good as I once was, but I can pretty much do everything guitar wise that I was able to do previously with a few caveat. I mean, like sometimes my brain tells my hand to do something and it won't do it.
Sure.
And that's usually, and the most I can play at a time is 2 hours. So, and that's playing lightly, that's not like jamming out every 5 minutes. So like for someone that's used to playing, because a lot of places they want you to play 3 hours sets or 1 hour, 3 sets
Yeah,
or
with like
whatever.
a break or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so nowadays I tell places I can't do that, and I have to sit down. So it's not going to be so, but I found some really accommodating venues that are and for the kind of music that I play now, it's totally fine and everything because cello player sits down and the guitar player sits down. It's all good.
Right.
So it worked out, the style of music that we play, it works out great. That's kind of another reason why I kind of shifted too, because I just couldn't play the singer-songwriter stuff anymore.
Sure. That makes sense.
And it just didn't work, for what I was doing. But I was definitely angry about the whole situation. Like it was definitely bitter. Really, I didn't, my family doesn't need this now. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a little angry about the whole thing and just trying to figure it out. Like what are we gonna do? Like because I've always been one to work. It's not like the most prestigious kind of work, but to be able to do my art, I needed to be able to do this.
Sure.
So now what do I do? Because what a lot of people don't understand about disability is it ain't a free ride, number one, but also you're making a third of what you normally would make as a working person. So it's not like you get your full salary and everything's good and gravy and you just sit home and it's all good.
Right.
It's actually, and every 5 years you get a full inventory. Like they have their doctors check you out. They go through all your paperwork, make sure you're not doing anything crazy. Like it's
Mm.
a full exam,
Right.
like all the way around, and make sure that you're not cheating the system and stuff like that. So, you know, sometimes I take a little bit of umbrage with people like, "Oh, you got it easy now," and it's like, listen, I have a 10-year-old car and there's a reason for it,
Yeah.
like, you really have to focus on what you're doing to make things go around. My wife said to add some stuff to her workload as well, just to make things work. And that doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. That's why sometimes I bristle
Yeah.
when people are like, "Oh yeah, it's all good." No, no, it's not all good.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so I had a lot of that stuff going around, like just in me and just like so I was like, I don't know how because like back in the day, people, oh man, you should write a song about working in the factory like Bruce Springsteen. And I was like, yeah, Bruce Springsteen never worked in a factory. If he worked in a factory, he would never write about it.
Right.
You know?
Let it fade into
Yeah,
non-existence.
he would not want that in his brain. Like,
Yeah.
Same with Paul Simon. I always take umbrage with those guys never worked a day in their life, like
At least not in that.
not that kind of work because they romanticize it. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're romanticizing things you don't understand. And so, which is a classic writer thing to do.
Yeah.
Jack Kerouac does the same thing. Well, he kind of, I have to take that back a little bit because he did work on the railroads and he did a lot of like blue collar. He kind of did my route, which is kind of, he'd make enough to make things work and then go do his art thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that I understand that a little bit more than maybe Bruce or Paul Simon there. But
Yeah.
not to knock those guys. I mean, they're great artists and they're fantastic. I love all their stuff, but it's just like, just it's hard to romanticize something that you understand you've experienced.
Oh
I think
yeah.
is definitely that's a writer thing for sure. I can romanticize, having a yacht. I think that's kind of where I'm at.
Right. Let's romanticize that. What does that
Yeah,
look
let's
like?
let's
Or a
manifest that. That
helicopter.
would be great.
Perfect. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah. I got my mansion going on, and my
Right?
manservant, Alfred, so,
Alfred.
but
That's great.
little DC reference for everybody,
Yes. I
little
love
Easter
Alfred.
egg. But so it's interesting how all that kind of works out and stuff like that. So but my wife was funny. She goes, "You're gonna write about this," and I was like, "Nah, nah, nah, no, I'm not." Sure enough,
Never.
she's never wrong. Let's just put it that way. It's like, and so we went up. It's funny because we're in upstate New York, but then there's an upstate New York. There's near like they call it the Thousand Island region or Adirondacks area. And so we rented a small little cabin on Ontario Lake there, and so I wrote the book in 3 days.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
and
That's
so
amazing.
yeah, but it was like 3 years into it though. So
Ooh.
like I had been mulling all this stuff, dealing with insurance, dealing with doctors, with outside people, with your family, with the feelings that you have inside of you, like all that stuff was in me.
Yeah.
And I just needed to exercise it, just get it out, like just a big purge. We kind of did it on purpose. Like my wife was like, "You ready?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so she does all the arrangements and stuff, gets it all, so we took the dog, we took our son, and so we went up there. So I would swim during the day and in the morning with my son. It was great therapy, great way to start the day. And then she would take him on a like a, like sightseeing thing, or there was some attraction or something, and I would write. So I would have like 3 or 4 hours of writing time and just really just work it all out. And haiku is interesting too because it's 3 lines. It's all about the syllables and stuff like that. And that was one of the biggest things for me was, I kind of changed up the syllable quotient a little bit to, so I went a 757 kind of thing so that I could get more information. And so the middle line was kind of like the glue piece in between the top two, lines, just to kind of like, so I was able to give people more information than I would in a 575 scenario, which is more
Sure.
traditional
Yeah.
haiku. And so, I kind of flipped it a little bit and which is fine because obviously haiku is a Japanese thing and Japanese symbols and English letters don't jive at all. So like what we consider haiku is actually not really
The
the
same.
traditional thing. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
not. And so taking liberties, I didn't feel so bad about it. And it's not a sacred cow in my opinion. And so, it's not like sonnets or something like that where it's like you really got to be on the money.
Yep. Yep.
Otherwise, people are going to know and they're going to be able to call you out on it because, there's some great sonnet. I've never been able to tackle those, and I'd stay away from them with haiku I can get away with, but I know those sonnets, they're there to hurt you,
Yes. They're
So
dangerous.
yeah, very dangerous, so I stay away from the dynamite, that's for sure. So I was able to write, to write these things, and And then I would get feedback from my wife and some friends that I trust, and and she lived it too, so she was able to read it, and it was cathartic, but it was also painful. To this
Sure.
day, it's pretty painful to read for us because of the kind of the trauma that we went through to get to that place of knowledge. It's like,
Right.
not all knowledge is gained through books. Sometimes you got to live it, and this was definitely one of those times where we lived it and we survived it. I would say we survived. It wasn't an easy go for sure. There was some weeks we didn't know where the money was coming from, like, or
Right.
we didn't know what was wrong with me or if I would ever be well again, like, or functional.
Yeah.
Like, she thought I was gonna be in my I slept in a lazy boy for 2 years because I couldn't get up the stairs.
Sure.
So those are real things. Those are she didn't know if she would have to, like, take care of an invalid for the rest of her life. She didn't know. I didn't know,
Yeah.
and from my background, that's shameful to be in that situation. It also gave me motivation to not be that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, I get that.
you can give up or you can dig in. And I think I didn't want to give up. I didn't want that. So that was really the most important part for me, was not giving up and not giving in to whatever this is,
Well, and
you
that's
know.
obviously so motivational to those who are listening. So, do you have any advice for creatives who might be going through their own challenges or their own disabilities for getting that motivation for being able
I,
to dig in?
well, I would say the biggest thing is, I heard this great quote. I don't know if you know. He's a movie director. His name is Robert Rodriguez. He did a lot of big films. He did the Spy Kids series. He did the Sin City series, Desperado.
Okay.
He's a big director, and his first movie, Mariachi, I'm probably butchering that really bad, but he made it for like an obscene low amount of money, and he got it into like Sundance, and then his career took off. But I always took this quote. He goes, "Well, I had a guitar, I had a turtle, and I had a camera, and I made a movie." And all those elements are in that movie, because it's about a mariachi guitar player that's also like an assassin. So it's kind of like an action movie. But he took stock in what I took from it was, he took stock in what he had. What do you have? Do you have a guitar? Okay, say you can't use your hand. Well, we were talking earlier about gypsy music, like,
Mhm.
gypsy jazz, that kind of thing. One of the
Yeah.
greatest gypsy jazz guitarists of all time is Reinhardt.
Yep.
And so, but what people don't quite understand about him is he was paralyzed. He had two fingers, and he used two fingers up and down the fretboard. And so, another great guitar player that had a disability was Jerry Garcia. He was missing a middle finger.
Oh,
Um,
goodness.
another one that comes to mind too that was missing a middle finger was Phil Keggy, who's also a very prominent guitar player. And so these guys, they were like, how do I get around it? Well, Reinhardt, he found a different way to chord, and it was musically very sophisticated, but he was only using two fingers up and down. And
Yeah.
there's film of him doing it. It's unreal. Like, because he actually had to speed up his picking hand. So it's almost like this like surf thing that he's doing, in the 30s. And he's like, and he's just moving his hands up and down the fretboard with two fingers. It's amazing. Like, I encourage anyone to just check it out, even if that's not your flavor of music. Like, check him out, because it's like you're seeing a guy that many consider one of the greatest guitar players to live, and
Right.
he's only got two fingers. And there's many examples of other guys that, and gals, I'm not as familiar with some of the gals that have disabilities. Well, there's the painter, Frida, the Mexican painter. She did a lot of murals and stuff like that. Selma Hayek did a biography film on her back in the day, and she got crushed. She got crushed by a public transportation bus,
Oh my gosh.
and so she was in a brace for the rest of her life. And so, she had to go through like pain management and like try to figure, but she was a muralist, she was a writer, she was, a lot of different things, great artist. It's about what do you have, take inventory of what you have, take stock on what you have and what can you do, not what you can't do. If you focus on what you can do, then you can achieve something. I mean, you hear all
So smart.
there's another great guitar player. His name is Michael Brecker. And I can't remember if it's ALS he has. He can't play at all. He was like Randy Rhoads, like he was a shredder guitar player in the 80s, but they were able to design software for him to compose music with air. So he's got an air tube like a talk box, like Peter Frampton, wow 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 wow.
Okay.
So what he does is he puts that thing, they put it up to his mouth, and then he sings the notes, and then it writes the music for him on the software, and then he gives it to someone else to play. So it's like he's still composing the music and doing all that kind of stuff, but he can't physically do it anymore. And that actually happened to me, like when I couldn't play. My wife, who's a piano player as well, like I would say, what does it sound like if we did F, C, G, B minor, something like that. Like, and she would play it on the piano for me. And like I would write lyrics to him and then she would play and sing the parts. And just to ease my mind, because that stuff it doesn't stop. It doesn't
Yeah.
stop even though you physically can't do it.
Right.
And so she was a godsend in that sense that she was able to do that. And then I found an app on my phone, on Google Play or whatever, and it was like a bunch of samples. So I was able to create music with samples. And it was actually my first solo record that I made. Was I put all these samples together and I synthesized them through my guitar pedals that I own. That way, because I couldn't play the guitar parts and do all that stuff, but I could hear it in my head. So
Yeah.
and then I just re-synthesized all this stuff, and I made a 5-song EP out of it. And it sounds cool, but I was able to do that because I was like, what do I still have? Well, I still have my mind. I still have some physical tools that I could, like my hands still kind of work. I just can't do the work that I normally would do. And so like that stuff saved me to be able to still work, and then I could still write. And that was the thing. I thought, well, I can be a writer for the rest of my life. I've always done it, so I might as well just continue to do it, but go deeper,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. And so as a writer, it's not that I took it for granted, but I was a little gun shy about that, because in college I had a weird episode with a professor. I had shown him some stuff, and he just kind of blew me off. And I was like, okay, my stuff stinks, but really he didn't really tell me whether they stunk or not.
Yeah.
It was probably like, I don't have time for this, which is probably what it was, but I didn't know that, so I was a
Mm.
little gun shy about submitting or showing things to people or anything like that. So when I finished writing, and then my wife and I, we edited the haikus, because sometimes in your head you think you got the right amount of syllables, but you
Right.
miscounted by one or something like that. So it's always good to have someone to kind of like make sure you're in the right. And then sometimes I had to change a word because it was a little bit, was one over, whatever. There was a little,
Sure.
it was more nuts and bolts kind of. As long as I'm of the opinion you can edit as long as it doesn't change the meaning of the piece. So there's a word that you need to change because it didn't quite fit or whatever, go ahead and do it. I'm not one of those people like, this is what I said, this is what it's got to be, like I think if you're so rigid like that, you're never going to get anything done. And so that was a big thing for me, was just to make sure that technically it was sound. That was a big, because I was like, if people are going to read it, I don't want them to think I'm a sloppy or that I'm lazy in what I'm writing, because I think a lot of people think of poetry as free verse, and some of it is terrible. In the sense of it's sloppy, it's not well thought out. It's I mean, you get the guys that like you get the Robert Frost and stuff that are impeccable tacticians as far as rhyme goes and stuff like that, or you get but then you get the Walt Whitmans that are like, okay, I'm not sure exactly what he's doing, but it sounds cool.
Yeah.
like he's got his own kind of rhythm going on, which is all right. I'm not against it. I actually inspired by a lot of Walt Whitman stuff since he only wrote one book his whole life. It was just fascinating to me. That's such a
Right?
that's a rabbit hole to go down. But but as far as like guys that I really admire, like I'm a big T.S. Eliot guy, and I'm a big, I'm big into that, like very technical writing. Even though like at first when I first read Wasteland when I was a teenager or whatever, I didn't understand that it was super technical. Like I didn't get, you don't get it the first
Right. There's a
round,
lot of books like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's important too because I like Easter egg type things that you
Same.
get to reread, and
Yeah.
you digest it a little bit more. You just keep reading it until you're like, oh, I get it now. Holy cow,
Yeah.
this is amazing. So that was a big deal for me, but also for this book, the biggest inspiration was this book that I read in college called Songs of Napalm by Bruce Weigel, which was a big inspiration for my book. Well, his book is about his experience in Vietnam, so it's a very traumatic uh, book. It's kind of like the poetry version of that Tim O'Brien book, The Things They Carry.
Mm.
Kind of that kind of vibe. Like he's talking about burning whole villages and just the trauma of war
Yeah.
in trying to suss it out in these short increments. And I loved his philosophy of we can deal with pain, we can deal with trauma in short period, in short doses.
Bursts. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was what haiku for me was I was so bitter and so angry about this whole situation. I was able to get catharsis through these short spurts of verse and be able to get it out of me and be safe with it, and and keep my mental health intact by doing this. That's a big important part of the whole process is keeping your faculties intact.
Yes.
you know,
Yes. I
that's
agree.
a big, it was funny too, because when COVID came around, I was actually already ready for it because I had already been at home, already kind of had, and that's a big thing too, is have a routine. We talk about Joe Rogan, I don't know, it was Jocko Willink podcast that I was listening to. It was with a POW that was in the Hanoi Hilton, and he said that when you're in isolation or when you're in confinement, which I wasn't, but I was like by myself a lot,
Yeah.
have a routine. Make sure you brush your teeth, make sure you you change your clothes, make sure you're
Mm.
so I don't stay all day in my, if I'm home, I'm not in my pajamas all day.
Yep.
That's important not to do that. You see a lot of people these days, they go to Walmart in their pajamas, and that's a big no. That's a sign of that's not okay. There's
Yeah.
something else going on, at least in my estimation. I mean, obviously I'm not a psychologist, but to have a routine, have those things that you need, those tools, because I have a schedule now. I've got these things that I do. It's not monetarily satisfying necessarily, but it keeps me occupied. It keeps my brain working, and I'm able
Yeah.
to do the things that I need to do safely and mentally intact, which I think is
That's so
very
smart.
important.
Oh, yeah,
So
for sure. Do you foresee yourself writing more books in the future?
I have another book already done.
Do you?
Um,
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, it's just not published yet, and I'm working right now. Yeah, this one's more of a free verse. This is kind of like it's called Winter and Other Songs, and it was kind of like it's not all written during COVID, but it was kind of inspired by COVID in the sense that it's about winter and the different forms of winter.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I'm Scandinavian, so they have different words for winter. The Finnish words are a little bit different. Like they have different meanings to them, and so I broke it up into three different types of winter using the Finnish words,
That's
and
cool.
and uh and so it's kind of a homage to my heritage, and also like it was a way to suss it out as well, like be able to categorize that because some of it's a little more political, and then some of it is just kind of like musings about the day or whatever. So there's different types of winter that you can be in,
Yep.
and so or like I talked about earlier, like my mental health, like if it was a little bit darker day, there's winter for that too. And so that book is done. It just needs to be edited. And like I said, it's a little bit more, there's like some different types. Like that one is a little, it's not as structured in the sense that there's different types of poetry in it. So there's some free verse, but there's also some like different types of rhyme in it. There's this new structure that I'm trying to figure out where the poem works horizontal and vertical at the same time.
Oh, neat.
Um, so I'm trying to work that out and trying to make that a thing. Or the other thing too is that where I'm using one word, so one word works this way and this way at the same, like, at the same time. It's a little bit convoluted, but I want it to work like you're reading a sentence that rhymes, but it's all one word on each line. So
Okay.
it's kind of a new form that I'm toying with. And then also on top of that, so that's done. And then now I'm working on my what I guess would be considered the third thing, which is a short story book. It's called Forge Road, and it's a collection of like short story, like memoir, short story type things, where I kind of extrapolate philosophically on stories of things that happened to me as a kid or my 20s or things. Like one of the stories is about me driving at 100 miles an hour
Oh my.
and getting caught by the police.
I
So,
was gonna say it.
there's some
Yikes.
philosophical things that you can extrapolate from that,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's, so that's kind of what I'm working on right now as far as writing goes. And then of course I'm always kind of like working sketch type things out. And I just did I just wrote a poem called Beatles as Atoms, which is it's going to be for a experimental piece. The producer is doing like he's making like what they call lo-fi music, which you use these samples and then you synthesize them and kind of make it, it's kind of a long form a little bit, and then people put the poems in there and you kind of like sample through them. It's kind of an interesting
Cool.
form. There's a lot of examples on YouTube and stuff of lo-fi type music. It's a lot of people use it for studying, and that it's kind of ambient type music. And so yeah, I did a piece for that producer. His name's Eric Anderson. He's a good producer in my local area. So that was a piece that I did. And then yeah, and then we're just working on the record. That's kind of right now, that's kind of like the focus right now is finishing up the record and making sure that we can get it so that it's sounding the way we want it to. And so we're pretty excited about finishing it up, and we're almost to the finish line, which is kind of good. And then we got to pull our hair out trying to mix the thing, which is always the toughest part of the whole process. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, it's a good time. We're doing some good things, and I'm really excited about the future as far as the writing goes. And that was the other thing I wanted to talk about too, is like the biggest thing that, because I know a lot of people, they self-publish, or there's different ways to there's traditional publishers, there's different ways to do it, and I chose to do a hybrid in the sense that because I was just going to self-publish. I was just going to jump on Amazon and throw it on there and
Sure.
whatever, because I didn't have a ton of money, and I didn't really know what, I'd never been published before, so I didn't really know what the ins and outs were, like what were the pros and cons. And so, but my wife talked me out of it. She's like, well, just submit it some places and see if there is any interest. And sure enough, I got some interest from Atmosphere Press down in Austin, Texas, and they're a hybrid. So what people might not know about hybrids is you kind of front a lot of the production costs, and then they do a lot of the promotion for you, which is pretty awesome because then you're not. That's the hardest part of the whole deal, in my opinion. And so
Many other authors too.
oh well, because you spend so much time by yourself, doing the thing, doing the work, and it's like, okay, I did the work, what are we gonna do?
Now I have no
So
idea how to converse with people. Yeah.
yeah, like I have no social skills, to a certain extent, or you feel weird about selling yourself. I think
Yep,
that's the biggest for me.
it is.
Like I always want the work to speak for itself, and so that's why I like the third party type PR situation. Where it's a little bit not directly me asking my friends and family to buy my book. That's kind of weird to
Yeah,
me.
no, I get that.
And so I just encourage people to just try. What are they going to say? No? that doesn't mean you're not good. How many rejections did Ernest Hemingway get? If you really look into it, like the history of book writing, there's a lot of great writers that have been passed up by
Oh yeah.
publishing. You
Yeah,
know, they got screwed in the end because, so and so was awesome, and
yeah.
and I also think that like you grow as a writer going through these processes as well. I think that sharpens your sword a little bit and it makes you a little tougher.
Oh
I mean, I
yeah.
think me as an independent musician DIYing it for most of my life, I was kind of like had a thick skin already about my work because it's like, well, okay, I'm not one of the 1% that has a record deal and I'm not with Harper's Collins or whatever. I'm used to kind of like hoofing it a little bit. And so I didn't take rejection as they didn't like me.
Yep.
And it's not about that at all. It's really not. And I hope people understand that whatever your art is, it's not about that. It's not about it's you contributing to society the way you contribute. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of times we get so bogged up in how much does it sell?
Yep.
How
Well,
much
and
does
that's what the
it
publishers and
yeah,
the big names are doing. They're
yeah,
looking at it from that
yeah,
perspective of can I sell this
yeah,
versus the merit of the piece. Yeah.
yeah. And that's the thing is if we had that mentality for every piece of art, some of the greats would never be great.
Mm,
Van Gogh sold one to his brother, like one painting to his brother in his lifetime.
yeah.
Like, think about that. That blows my mind. If you look into how much Iggy Pop and the Stooges sold those records in the 70s, maybe 25,000 copies. Maybe they were
Yeah.
failures. They got dropped, but they changed a whole generation of musicians in the 70s. There was no punk without them. There's no
Right.
Green Day without the Stooges. There's none. That's a fact. And so like I guess my thing is the commercial part of it, in my opinion, is a byproduct of you going out there and doing your art. That's nice. It's icing on the cake, but it's not the thing.
Yeah.
The thing is doing the art.
Yep.
The greats weren't great because they knew how much they were going to sell. That's
Yeah.
that's that's 100% true. You just got to do it. And that I guess that's what I would encourage everybody to do. Just do it. And I know like writing is kind of a weird thing because you're sitting there by yourself staring, I don't write on a computer. I don't write I can't do it. It takes away from me getting my thoughts directly because I'm a terrible typist. So I'm from back in the day when you actually had to take typewriter class.
Me too.
Yeah, I got my hand slapped with a ruler a couple of times. Let me just say, home row, not good. I'm still a hunter. I'm still a hunter and a pecker. Like that's not ever gonna change. So to me, it gets in the way of the writing. And so I write everything out. Whether it's a short story, whether it's a long thing, whether it's a short thing, I write everything out on hard copy. And I thought I got myself a Smith Corona Deluxe like several years ago, and I was like, I'm gonna learn how to type real well. Yeah, I quit doing that after like 2 weeks. That was terrible.
I
The
always think it's
manual,
interesting when guitar players and piano players do that with their keyboard, like
yeah,
with it's like you would think that you guys would be like the best of it. It's so
no,
amazing.
no. It's like what people say. Oh, you're a performer, so you'd be great at speaking. No, I'm not. Not without that wooden box in front of me. I don't know anything. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
I always say, musicians should shut up and just play. That's real. You ever hear onstage banter? It's the worst. It's terrible.
That's too
Unless it's
funny.
like, hello, Cincinnati or whatever, that's fine. But like they
Right.
start talking, the worse it gets. It's not good. Shut up and sing is a real thing.
That cracks me up. Well,
So
Andrew,
anyway, but
thank you for being a part of the show. I mean, my audience,
oh
I think there's a
yeah,
lot that they're going to take away from it. So,
I hope
if they
so.
want to find out more about you, about your journey, about your book, about your music, where do they go to find you?
So I have andrewcloninger.com, which is I do a lot of the writing stuff on there. And the music is rencovemusic.com. And we also have a YouTube channel called Basement Factory Music, and that has all my different projects. I have several different music projects on there, different videos, and some of it's a little bit older, some of it's newer, that type of thing. So just check it out, and then, if you want to buy some music, you can buy it on Bandcamp. Just look up Ren Cove or Basement Factory Music, and you'll be able to find us there, and you can purchase. We have an EP out right now called Trees, which it's pretty fun. So that's a good record to check out. And yeah,
Great.
like I said, hopefully the record comes out this year, but with mixing and stuff like that, I can't promise anything, but so we're definitely looking at different ways to release it. We're not exactly sure how that's all going to work out business wise, but yeah, we're definitely going to finish that up, and hopefully it'll be out soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and telling my audience all about your story and everything that you're working on. It's an amazing journey. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun. So thank you so much.
Wow, what an incredible discussion that was. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Andrew as much as I did. His journey and insights are truly inspiring, and I believe they offer a lot of value to us as authors. If you found today's conversation uplifting and motivating, you can download the transcript of this episode by heading over to authorrevolution.org/245. I'll also include the links to Andrew's website and his book so that you can explore more of his work. Now, before we wrap up, I just want to mention an exciting thing that's going on right now. I am kicking off Independence Month. It's a little late, I get it, but that's all right. Better late than never. And we're kicking it off with a new kind of sale this year. From now until the end of July, you can get access to my All Access Pass membership on sale for just $77 a month. Now, this membership includes access to all of my courses. It's like a Kindle Unlimited subscription where you get access to the courses as long as you're paying for the membership. And everything's in there with the exception of the Millionaire Author Manifestation course. It even features the brand new Own Voice audiobooks course and AI Voicecraft, the add-on course for those wanting to master 11 Labs. So if you're interested, make sure you head over to authorrevolution.org/245 and get in on that deal. It's amazing. You're going to love it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Go forth and start your author revolution. Okay, indie author, Carissa Andrews with Author Revolution here. We need to have a chat. I know you want to build a sustainable long-term author career, but you can't do it just by wishing for it. It would be nice, yes, but alas, you gotta do the work. By that I mean you need to reframe the way you look at your author business so that you can write and publish more frequently. With Rapid Release Roadmap, my signature online course, I'll help you learn not only how to make writing and publishing 4 books a year seem easy, but I'll help you master your prolific author mindset so that you can clear away all the negative self-talk that's holding you back. Trust me, I have been there. To learn more about Rapid Release Roadmap, head over to rapidreleaseroadmap.com. Over there, I'll give you all the insights on what you'll find inside the course. Plus, I walk you through all of the bonuses you're going to get based on the payment option you choose. And yes, there are some good ones in there, even if I say so myself. Once again, head over to rapidreleaseroadmap.com to learn more and sign up today.